Hey guys, so in the last video, we introduced you to this 1995 SeaDoo Speedster that I picked up. Kind of showed you what was going on with it, what was wrong, what needs fixed. It probably seems like I should just go ahead and start pulling apart the motor, but I really don't want to because I'm really hoping it's not that, even though there's a good possibility that it is. Hopefully it'll be something simple just in either the starter, electrical system, or else underneath here, there was a ton of grass that we've been dragging since I picked the boat up, and I thought it was just kind of wrapped around the trailer because it kind of looked like it was there. But I got up underneath here and it's actually all up into the intake grate and not really going to be able to see it, I don't think, with the camera, but I lifted up these reverse buckets and back in there, you guys aren't going to be able to see it really. But there's a ton of grass wrapped around that impeller and also in this one, which this engine obviously did spin very well. But either way, we need to get that out of there. So I'm going to pull the intake grate and see what all we can find in there, because maybe there's something worse than grass wrapped up in this thing. You guys can see that grass is super tangled up in there. So some pretty thick stuff too. Get that out of the way. And then, it's up top here. We got these 4 Phillips head screws. It may or may not come out. All right, we got that grate off. It was a little too difficult to do with just one hand, so got that pulled off. You can see down in here, completely wrapped around that impeller. This other side, same kind of deal. It's all around the shaft there. I don't see anything that's really so crazy that I could see it locking up though. So we'll get all that cleaned off and then kind of go from there, I guess. So I somewhat take back what I said. I went to start pulling that grass off by hand off of this shaft, and that stuff is wrapped around there so tightly, I'm going to have to get a razor knife and basically cut it off. That is terribly wrapped on there. We might have gotten lucky, guys. We'll see how this goes. So I just got all that cut out of both impeller shafts. There was a lot of grass. So most of that over there was just what was kind of hanging out of the intake grate and under the boat. But then this here was all pretty much wrapped around the port side impeller shaft. So very, very tightly wrapped around. I don't know if this is even doing it justice. With that much grass in there, I really don't even think that pump was pushing any water because that whole passage was completely blocked off. This one, which is the bad motor, was actually pretty clear and free of debris. The unfortunate thing is I was easily able to grab the good running motor's impeller shaft and I could spin it by hand pretty easily. With this one, I'm not able to do that. So even with good compression, I mean, you should still be able to rotate it somewhat, and this one is not wanting to do that. So we're going to jump into the engine compartment and start checking things out there because I'm starting to think probably something good didn't happen. Somebody had made a note in the comment section in the last video that this exhaust on the motor that we're having problems with, the paint looks very faded, almost like it was extremely overheated compared to this one. And that honestly makes a lot of sense. So I'm really starting to lean toward this motor may be cooked. The plug looks normal for a 2-stroke, nice and oily, dirty for sure, but nothing out of the ordinary on either plug. Both plugs look pretty decent. Of course, that doesn't mean anything. I'm just pulling these out, so maybe it'll make it a little easier to turn that shaft. So yeah, notice how this motor turns over quite easily. It's got some resistance, obviously, due to compression. But no, it doesn't have a hard time turning over by any means. This guy here barely rotates back and forth. It's definitely not doing well. That's with no compression, guys, and that thing is still not loving life at all. Really curious what's going on. I half want to detach this impeller just for the heck of it, this shaft, and see if it even rotates. I don't know if you guys could hear that or not, but there was a pretty high-pitched squealing sound coming from this motor too, which makes me think that there may possibly still be something seized up in that impeller. Well guys, this thing still is feeling pretty locked up. I can grab onto it here with the crescent wrench and rotate it, and it doesn't sound like it's really binding on the actual impeller itself, and I don't see anything, any more debris or anything back in there. Not sure if that lights it up any better for you guys, but either way, if we have to pull the motor, we're still gonna have to get this off. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these 4 nuts and go ahead and pull off the rest of this housing. Okay, I think we finally got it all loose. So, should be able to get out of there now. There we go. Guys, this impeller is locked up. Holy crap. So, I'll just show you here real quick. There's nothing holding this on now, right? Shaft is back up inside the jet ski still. This thing doesn't even budge. Good grief. And if you look at this, there's chunks in here. I bet they just bent this all to crap. The wear ring, because this is a SeaDoo, so it does have a wear ring. That thing looks very chewed up as well. Dude, I think we got extremely lucky today. This could have been probably the best buy. Assuming this is what's wrong, this has got to be the best buy that I've made since probably my first GP 760 that ended up just having a bad gasket on the freaking exhaust housing. That is not good right there. That's locked up, but the good thing is we can get a new impeller, we can get a new wear ring, and I bet you this thing has no issues. I can't believe we got this lucky, guys, but we did. So we pulled it off again. All right, so I had an absolute nightmare time getting this impeller loose. You're supposed to have a special spline tool that goes in here, and then you can break it off with a socket, and then you put the other side that has a flat spot on it in the vise, and it can spin off. However, mine would not do that. Just way too locked up, so I ended up wedging something in the impeller and was able to break it off by basically stomping on a big crescent wrench, and now this thing is spinning off. Some people might wonder why I didn't just get the tool, and that's because I wanted to see how the bearings were in this pump and to see what else I needed to order aside from an impeller. Looking at the impeller, it is a SeaDoo impeller, so probably original to the machine. Got a part number there too, so that's going to be nice and helpful. And you guys will notice, while the impeller was chewed up and needed replaced, it's not the impeller that was the problem. That pump unit itself is completely locked up. So that's why I checked that, because usually when the impellers go bad and you don't see anything wedged in them, it's not usually the impeller that's locking it up. Usually when an impeller actually goes bad, you just get no thrust out of it because there's just so much bypass going past the wear ring. And now that I'm thinking about it, when we took that nose cone, this guy, off the front of the pump unit, there was a lot of water that came off. You can still see some of it kind of on the floor here that I didn't wipe up, and pretty much no oil. So I'd guarantee what happened is got water in the pump unit, froze, locked the bearings up. So we'll finish ripping this thing apart and we'll be ordering new bearings, new impeller, new wear ring for sure, because the wear ring is pretty toast. And then we should be in business. To get this shaft out, it should be, I think, as simple as using a punch and beating it out of here with a hammer. Definitely felt it move. That got it. So there is the shaft. You can see where the impeller thread's on right there. And then there's the flat spots I was talking about that I was grabbing hold of with the vise. All right, guys, so this bearing here, which almost just looks like it was part of the shaft originally, because you can't even see the needle bearings in there anymore, but that is what had single-handedly locked up this motor. This is after I broke it loose, mind you, but still having to apply a lot of force to even barely get it to rotate with this pipe wrench. So keep in mind, this shaft typically spins whatever the motor is spinning, and that's spinning your impeller. So I don't know, 6,000 plus RPMs, and it should be spinning it obviously rather smoothly. I got the puller set up because that bearing is absolutely not coming off of here without a little bit of persuadance. If you guys are doing any kind of work like this, I definitely recommend getting one of these pullers. Actually, you can see it right there. Got a whole set so you can do bigger and smaller bearings. But it's great for pulling those sleeve type needle bearings off of shafts, whether it's like an axle or something like that, or yeah, look at that, just the whole guts fall out as soon as it gets off of here. So that bearing was absolutely smoked beyond repair. Unreal that it never got changed before then, but hey, what can you do, I guess. This shaft should still be good. The washer, really not too worried about. The new kit that I ordered does come with one of those. Otherwise, you'd typically want to keep that if for whatever reason you were just doing a bearing, but the kits are so cheap that you might as well do it all anyway. And then take a look at that bearing there. I don't know, maybe 50% of the little rule? Yeah, probably better than 50%, but either way, that thing is absolutely smoked. By far the worst condition one I've ever seen. I actually more question how he even got it to run it all across the lake like he said he did. Could be why that exhaust was so overheated, because this thing definitely wouldn't have been pulling any water for cooling on that motor, so it's probably a good thing it shut down when it did. We still don't absolutely know that the motor isn't hurt either. We're just kind of hoping at this point. And it rolled over so smooth that I kind of don't see how it could. Get this guy off of here. What a pain. If a new shaft wasn't $100, probably would have just got everything, but I didn't figure it could be too messed up, and it definitely doesn't look to be. Just all the components attached to it are in very sad shape. There we go. Wow. That thing is absolutely annihilated. Shaft is still good though. We'll take and clean up the surfaces a little bit and it'll be good to go. All right guys, so I just got the wear ring out of this old jet pump, and maybe a lot of you guys have done this before and it's pretty straightforward for you. This was my first time dealing with a wear ring because it's my first SeaDoo. My Yamahas don't have wear rings, which is super nice. But with the SeaDoos, as far as I know, pretty much every one of their jet skis utilizes a wear ring. So I'll kind of show you what the problem was. So here is the wear ring, and where I was getting hung up is I thought that this white part was supposed to remain in the pump housing, but apparently that just means that it's an original one, and it's actually the black part. It just shows you basically, from my understanding, that it's time to replace once it wears the black down into the white portion. So you actually have to cut through that entire portion, because that's what I ended up doing, is cutting it down the center, and then I was able to fold it out. A lot of people said to use a Dremel, which I tried for a second. Sawzall definitely wasn't going to work. What I ended up using is this oscillating tool. It worked so amazingly, it's not even funny. I definitely recommend you guys do it. Just used regular blade there, put it up against the side, went all the way down. But that's what I would recommend you guys use. One of these guys here gets that thing out of there super, super easy. As soon as I cut it, basically, it just kind of contracted on itself and came right out of the housing. So now we got that done. Got the old bearings out of the hub there. So now we just got to order new parts and throw this thing back together, and in theory, it will run. Well, I think that's going to about do it for this one, guys. Basically now I just kind of have to wait for parts to show up, which always sucks. And especially being here in Alaska, it's going to take a little bit longer than it would most places. But hopefully sometime next week, I should have a video for you guys putting this thing back together. And then hopefully we'll be able to test fire both motors, and maybe if we get super lucky, even be able to throw it out on the lake and just see, make sure everything, I don't even care if I get to run it on the lake. I just want to back the trailer in and fire it up and make sure that it's pumping water and everything how it's supposed to be. After that, if everything works out good, we will start moving on to cleaning it up and taking care of all the cosmetic issues that it has. Which honestly, I'm making it sound worse than it really is. The cosmetic issues are mainly just the upholstery, and then I do want to throw some fresh decals on it and bring it back to how it looked in the 90s. So yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying this so far. Hopefully you're as excited as I am about what a simple fix this was. Really looking forward to getting the parts and putting this thing back together, and we'll be sharing that with you guys in the next video. We'll see ya.